Good evening, members, and welcome to the Strategy and Resources Committee meeting on Tuesday, the 15th of June 2021. My name is Councillor Richard Siddall, and I am the chairman of this committee. Before we commence the business of the meeting, there are a few housekeeping issues to run through. Members, the setup of the meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, can I ask all present to work in the protocols agreed by the Council on the 29th of April 21 in the interest of member and officer safety. We are streaming live this meeting as well as being recorded, and by being present at the meeting you are consenting to be recorded. Members and officers, during each item please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you in turn to participate. During the meeting, because of the numbers that we are limited to in the chamber, there will be some logistical issues in terms of the officers and the officers' presentations. So therefore, there will be movement of the officers, so we may have to wait a little while officers change places so that we can accommodate them at those particular times. When invited to speak, please remove your mask, put on your visor, turn on your microphone and speak clearly. Please reference a page number or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible and ensure your microphones remain off when not speaking. Finally, can I draw your attention to the notices in the agenda about the different levels within the room and the fire escapes. The other item that I will bring, as it's a warm evening in the chamber, I feel that it's not necessary if gentlemen want to feel that they want to take their jackets off and their ties off. Please feel free to do so because it is a very warm evening. Thank you. So we now move to item number 2, apologies for absence. May I have the apologies, please, Tara?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies we received from Councillor Boyce and Councillor Stamp, and Councillor Edwards is attending as a substitute for Councillor Stamp. Thank you. Thank you,
Tara. So we now move on to item number 3, the minutes of the meeting on the 23rd of January 2021. The minutes of the special meeting held on that day are found on pages 5 to 124 and are approved as a true and accurate record. I move. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. That is Councillor Swain. If any member wishes to raise an item of accuracy, please state so now. Okay. Thank you very much, members. Do we agree those minutes by assent or do we take a vote? Thank you, members.
Chairman, I can't vote. I wasn't present at a previous meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. So item number 4 is disclosure of interest, to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest and or non-pecuniary interest related to items on the business of the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Durham.
Chairman, a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, although I don't think anything on the agenda is pertaining to that organisation.
No, there is tonight. Thank you, Councillor Durham. Any other pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Okay, thank you very much. I now move on to item number 5, which is public participation. I can advise that we have not received any submissions from members of the public. So therefore I move to item number 6 on the agenda, which is ICT Strategy for 2021 to 2026. We move to that which is found on pages 120, this thing can't see all the time, 125 to 136. We have Councillor officers Mr. Leslie and Mr. Hulley to present on this particular item, and The recommendations to the Council as set out in the report are as follows. To the Council that the Malden District ICT Strategy 21 to 26 for the Appendix 1 for the distribution to all staff giving support and guidance to management on future ICT projects and planning be agreed. Do I have a seconder? I can't see with this on, I'm afraid. Councillor Swain. Thank you, Councillor Swain. So I'd now like to move to Mr. Hulley or Mr. Leslie to present the report.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. Following the end of the previous ICT strategy, which ran out in 2020, a new strategy has been written to support Malden in both the transformation and the new hybrid working model. This strategy focuses on the completion of a set of projects to enable the Council to work more flexibly whilst having a focus on security. Through this work, ICT aimed to streamline the in-house systems, showing faster, more reliable data access. The projects listed are already budgeted for in the medium-term financial strategy, including the server replacement, which is highlighted as an essential piece of work. Thank you.
Mr. Leslie. Do we have any questions from members about this particular item? Councillor Channer.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me with my mask on?
Yep, fine.
Okay. I can't find the page now, which is always the way, but in the report, I think it did say that members' laptops within the last year, we'd all got the new laptops. I may be recalling incorrectly, but because of COVID-19 and everything, I can't recall. I thought I had this laptop for a while longer. And it does say there's a 3-year recyclable programme. So is that wholly accurate that all members have within the last year had a new Dell laptop?
Mr. Hulley.
Thank you, Chairman. Simply put, members haven't had new laptops in the last year. However, we would like to start a rolling cycle, which is what this project is about. So we've now listed that under hardware. I think it's page 132, where it mentions now staff and members and speaks about a rolling cycle over a 3-year period. That would kick off as of 2021, so now.
So one of the things that when we had the discussion about the report at the meeting was to ensure that, as well as officers, that members were reflected throughout the report and also taken into account in terms of the report. So that's, that was amended before that report came to the committee to ensure that members are also reflected in the renewal of equipment. So it's good that we are moving that forward. Any other questions? Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman. Just with regards to cost, I note that we've been told that it's obviously in the budget, and I can see on page 135 the sort of reoccurring cost of £500,000, 534k, and it's not immediately clear though. Could you just explain how much the whole thing is going to cost over a sort of 5-year period?
Mr. Hulley.
Thank you again. So yes, the figure 534300 on page 135 is based on last year's expenditure. From the point of view of things like the hardware renewal, the host servers that Chris has mentioned, and basically every other project listed in here, those have now been factored into each subsequent future year. So as an example, the 3-year rolling cycle for laptops is around 45,000 per year. However, that has a financial breakdown in a separate document. So we do have full figures for the ICT department, but this particular figure is only for last year, just as a total.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. If I may just go
Yes.
back on that. So the 534 is really a sort of indicative number for an annual cost. So could you, if you projected forward for the duration of the project, have you got a sum number, an aggregate number you could just let us have?
Again, off the top of my head, I don't. I could find that document though, so we would have to do that outside of
But
this.
it's probably about sort of 3.5 million or something, is it that sort of?
Over 5 years, yes.
Okay, if the committee could have that summary circulated, I'd be grateful. Thank you, Chairman.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Councillor Durham.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I wonder if I could just ask the officer if he knows how many members don't have any hardware at all. I know there are a few. I'm one.
As far as I'm aware, all members have some form of hardware, be that a tablet or a laptop. Obviously, one of the things that we do want to address over the coming subsequent years is that if a member specifically requests, for example, a laptop, they can get that, as opposed to, I believe, tablets, which a lot of members have at the moment.
I think,
Mr. Drummond, do you want to come back?
yeah, you can update your information because I don't have any MDC hardware at all.
Okay.
But I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. So obviously, Councillor Drummond, if you do require it, I'm sure the council will supply that to you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. Same as Councillor Durham, really. I use my own kit because I prefer to. It's absolutely not that I've been refused or let down in any way, but as it happens, I don't have any MDC kit. Thank you.
Okay. I think though where it is available if members want it, though, that's the crucial thing, isn't it, Mr.
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman, if I took another piece of kit home, I would be thrown out. That's the reason why.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. So what I would like to do is move those recommendations, and can we agree those by assent?
Agreed.
Okay.
Chairman, it is a recommendation to council.
Oh, okay, so we have to go to council as well. Yeah. Okay, so that will obviously then go to council. Those will be in July? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Holly. So we now move to agenda item 7, which is the Workforce and Community Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Statement of Policy found on pages 136 to 160. Mr. Leslie and Mrs. Brown? Or Miss Brown, would you like to come through? Thank you very much. Who are going to present the report?
Thank you. So the Council is committed to being an inclusive employer and providing inclusive services to the community. This Equality, Diversity and Inclusion policy assists with that commitment and to ensure the Council meets its duty under the Equalities Act 2010. 3 officers from the Council, from HR, Communities and Customer Services have reviewed and refreshed the policy. As a result, the policy has moved from being only internally focused to also looking externally to engage with partners and building on this strong partnership working that has taken place over the past year. 3 objectives have been set to assist in achieving the visions of the policy. 1, team champions, as well as equality, diversity and inclusion champions, will support the activities to meet the objectives with learning and development to support their roles. The 3 officer group will also continue to meet to drive forward the recommendations, and the group is also complemented by the addition of a committee member as part of the recommendations to this report, who will also be able to feed back to members. The equality impact assessment for this policy is also attached.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie. Mrs. Brown, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, so just to say, it's just been a really good opportunity to reflect on this policy, to add the inclusion in and to really support the organisation where we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic policy, and again, we amended the recommendations to include representation from the members, which I thought was important as well, and the fact that we are including the community as well. So the 2 recommendations as set out in the report are as follows. Recommendation little 1, that the new Equality, Diversity and Inclusion policy attached at Appendix 1 to be adopted, that a member of the Strategy and Resources Committee is nominated to join the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Officer Working Group. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Swain.
Second. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. So I will now invite members to comment on the report. Okay, no comments at all? Okay, it is a fantastic report. It is a fantastic report, and it should be commended by the officers who've done the work.
Thank you.
So when it comes to a recommendation little 2, can I have a proposal for who the representation is. Councillor Thompson was first.
Thank you. Councillor Channer, I would like to nominate, please, Chairman.
I'd like to second.
Thank
Okay.
you. I have got a little spiel. I'm afraid I had to write it out because it is actually pretty impressive. One thing I've already checked with her, and I know she doesn't mind me saying that Councillor Channer is in fact disabled. And she's also had, I can't even find it now, a great experience with Swans, which is a support group, with Mind, with a selection of other bodies, and I think she can, being able to see things from both sides of the coin, as it were, I think she would be an ideal person. So, thank you for that. And,
Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, I fell over it. Thank you.
Do you have any other recommendations? Councillor Swain.
Yes, I would like to consider nominating yourself, Councillor Siddle, as you have a great interest in this area.
Thank you very much. Do you have a seconder for that?
I'll second that, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the first, we will have to take these recommendations in separately then, as we have two nominations for the second recommendation. So,
Recorded vote, please, Chairman.
okay. Can I have a seconder for that, please? So, Councillor Thompson. So if we move to item number 1, do we want a recorded vote for that, or can we agree that by assent?
No, I think we agreed number 1 was a good report, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So item number 2, we've had a recorded vote, Tara, so could we take a roll call, please?
Yes, Chairman, thank you, members. So this is in relation to the nomination for Councillor Mrs Channer to sit on the officer working group. If you could just indicate for, against or abstain, please, when I call your name. Starting with Councillor Mrs Channer, please.
For Councillor Mrs Channer.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Against.
Councillor Siddle.
Against.
Councillor Swain.
Against.
And we've got Councillor Edwards.
Yeah. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
Councillor Miss White.
For.
And Councillor Edwards.
Against.
Chairman, the results of that are 5 in favour, 5 against and no abstentions.
Okay, so I have the casting vote, and I'm afraid I have to vote against. So do we now have to take the second vote?
Yeah, we'd need to. So members, again, this is voting now for Councillor Siddle. If you could just indicate for, against or abstain when I call your name, starting with Councillor Mrs Channer, please.
I'm afraid I know the Chairman's done the casting vote against, but I will have to go against Councillor Siddle.
Thank you very much.
In the interest of what the body is about.
Councillor Durham.
Yeah, I'm against, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
For, please.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
For.
Councillor Siddle.
For.
Councillor Swain.
For.
Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Miss White.
Against.
And Councillor Edwards.
For.
So, Chairman, the results of that are 5 in favour, 4 against and 1 abstention.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
So before we move on, I would just like to say that I know that Councillor Channer would have been excellent in that role, and I feel that I have a good background as well in terms of equality and diversity, and so therefore, I think both of us would have been good representation on that particular working group. And thank you for putting yourself forward, Councillor Channer.
I didn't, Councillor Mrs Thompson.
All right, well, thank you,
opposed me.
Councillor Thompson, for putting Councillor Channer forward.
Chairman,
Yes.
this is a bit off piece, but would it be possible to accommodate both of you?
Mr. Leslie?
Small working group of 3 members.
Yeah. Do you think it would diversify it too much, or because it would sway the representation?
It's quite I would go with it. Just 3 officers.
Yeah, but I think because there are only 3 officers, I think if we then have 2 members, the officers are representing both the community and the officers of the council. So I think it's best that we keep it as 3 and 1. But thank you for that.
Fair enough, I thought it was worth
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Chairman, sorry, can I just have my comments recorded against that advice? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bearing in mind, I don't necessarily agree for reasons I wish to keep to myself. Obviously, because of the nature of my situation, perhaps I felt I would be qualified to actually add something to it. But obviously, that's not the case from the officer's advice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Channer. Okay, Mrs Brown, thank you very much for attending this evening. Thank you. Okay, so we now move on to agenda item 8, which is statement of community involvement, found on pages 161 to 182. Mr Dodson, I believe that you are going to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I'm not going to present it. I'm going to hand over to Mr Winslow, who's been leading our planning policy and the review of the LDP. And in fact, the next two papers refer to planning policy, and Mr Winslow will present them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Winslow, and welcome to the committee, and welcome to your first meeting in the chamber. So, if you would like to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. The Statement of Community Involvement, or SCI, is a statutory document prepared by the Council as the local planning authority for the Morden District. It sets out how the Council will consult and engage with the community, with planning professionals and other stakeholders such as the Environment Agency, on planning matters spanning from preparing the local development plan and supporting parishes with neighbourhood plans, consulting on planning applications and engaging people as necessary in planning enforcement. The current SCI, or Statement of Community Involvement, was approved in November 2018, and an addendum was made in March 2020 that allowed for procedural changes needed due to COVID-19 restrictions. It is good practice to review the SCI frequently, and the Council is required legally to review it every 5 years. Whilst the next review is not due until 2023, now that the Council has committed to review the local development plan, it is good to review it now so that the SCI spans the whole LDP review timetable. The update has enabled us to link the SCI better to the refreshed corporate plan, which Council adopted in March 2021. It has been slimmed down to contain the critical information that is needed, which has made it easier to read and understand, and unnecessary content about internal processes has been removed. Work has taken place as well with development management officers and a lead specialist for place to ensure that the section that covers the functions relating to planning applications and enforcement reflect the statutory requirements, and the SCI is now consistent with the information that Morden District Council carries on its website. In addition, further advice has been included in the SCI as to what are or are not planning considerations to help people comment more effectively on planning applications. As you'll know, Chair, the Planning Policy Working Group considered the SCI at its meeting on the 27th of March 2021. Subject to committee approving the SCI for consultation this evening, the consultation will begin on Thursday the 17th of June, and it will run for 6 weeks until the 29th of July before a final report would go to Council for adoption. Thank you.
Was that March or May, Mr Winslow?
The Planning Policy Working Group?
Yeah.
May.
May,
sorry.
you said March.
Oh, did I? I beg your pardon, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr Winslow. So the recommendation is set out in the report as follows. That the statement of community involvement at Appendix A is approved for consultation purposes. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Swain. Thank you. I will now invite members to make any comments on the report. Members. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know whether this could be confirmed by the officer, because obviously it's a big learning process. One, it's a very good report, very good plan. But what informs the plan, my understanding, is the LDP and other informative documents, etc. And one thing I was thinking of earlier today was about the recent council needs did a local housing needs survey to identify what the needs of the district actually were, when the deadline for that information was the 12th of the 9th, 2020. I can't see any detailed information, so I'd like to get hold of that information for clarity so that we do know exactly what the housing needs responses were. And why I ask that is really there was a recent meeting at a planning where a specific large application was made and rejected, and it would be really, really good to have the clarity to understand what the needs actually are to be informed on the consultation that we're going to be going out to the relevant stakeholders. So more of a statement plus a question plus a request. I thought I might as well get them all in. Thank you.
Mr. Winslow, do you want to reply?
Thank you, Chair. You're quite right, Councillor Lagan, that a local housing needs assessment has been commissioned, was commissioned last year. That work is still ongoing at the moment. There's been there's been a need to review and reflect on the information that's come back from the council's housing needs consultants. But that being said, that work will come back to, well, it will become eventually to this committee, and it will also go before the Planning Policy Working Group, which Council has set up to consider the details and depths of the local development plan. So in time, that information will, of course, as well be published.
Councillor Lagan?
Just thank you, Mr. Winslow. Time bound, do you know how long? Because pieces of string.
I don't have to date the programme that particular report will go to the Planning Policy Working Group. But the intention is to go out to issues and options consultation on the LDP review this autumn, so it would need to be before then.
Okay. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, John. I think Councillor Channon had her hand up first.
Oh, did she? Sorry, Councillor.
No, I'm fine. I'm happy for Councillor Durham to go first. I'll melt my chocolate in my mouth.
I apologise.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just wondering. I think this is a very good report, but I'm wondering whether, due to the impending review of the planning system, whether this is going to be out of date before it's completed. We have things like the proposed abolition of the duty to cooperate as part of the planned review, and of course the different categorisations of land, one of which will mean that planning permission won't be required. It will be an automatic right to build. So I'm just wondering, same goes actually for our review of the LDP, whether we are jumping the fences before and rather wasting some time, but I'll let the officer comment.
Mr. Winslow?
Thank you. In terms of the planning bill, that was in the Queen's speech this year, yes, there are proposed changes, several ideas that are coming forward as about how the planning system might change over the course of the next few years. As it stands at the moment, this is your current legal responsibility, and the statement of community involvement, which is the purpose of this report, is covering your current responsibilities as a local planning authority. You are legally required to keep the SCI up to date. In respects of the matter of the planning system might be changing and it might affect the duty to cooperate, the duty to cooperate is a separate legal matter that, although the SCI does mention the duty to cooperate, it mentions it to provide the context of engagement as opposed to it stipulating how the duty needs to be discharged. That's in the next item before this committee.
Thank you. So I can just come back. Yeah, so we're obliged to go through this process, but it still might be superseded by whatever happens in Parliament. That's fine. I don't need a response.
Okay. Councillor Channon.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 174, and it is regarding the area that covers the pre-application process, just a matter of clarification in the light of various discussions I've been involved in recently. It does say at 4.7, all strategic proposals must be presented to a meeting of both members and officers in order to commence early member engagement, and then defines what strategic sites are, which obviously is defined also within our constitution of the council. just on that subject matter, is that subject to the applicant requesting a pre-application session, or is it has to be, because the wording is all strategic proposals must be presented. So I'm asking if there's the qualification of it's only in the case the applicant desires one, or that seems very prescriptive and indicates to me that indeed any strategic proposal should be presented, must be presented to members and officers in order to commence early member engagement. And there might be a reason I'm asking that, Chairman.
Okay. Mr Winslow, would you like to answer that?
I may need to call upon some colleagues here if I can't answer this completely, but this part of the SCI is dealing with pre-application advice. So if the applicant does not request a pre-application, I don't believe that clause would be triggered. Mr Lee has read through, as the lead specialist of place, has read through the statement of community involvement before it's come to committee. I don't know if Mr Dodson or Mr Holmes wants to add anything else to that.
Mr Dodson?
Through you, Chairman. Just to confirm that that's my understanding too.
Okay. Councillor Channer, did you want to?
Well, that's helpful, Chairman. I did want that clarification.
Okay.
I think it might be advantageous, if that is the case, that is made clearer in the light of something I'm aware of recently that happened when there was members' questions seeking some advice. So I think I would just point that out. May I have a subsequent question, Chairman? Regarding the councils that are on the list, if you like, I think it was this.
It's the next one, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, right. Got me more eyes to start myself.
Okay.
As long as it's the next one.
It is, Councillor Channer.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other members? No? Okay. So the recommendations are that the draft, the statement of community involvement is approved. Can we agree that by assent, or do we have a recorded vote? Okay, thank you for members. We now move on to agenda item 9, which is the duty to cooperate strategy, approval to consult, found on pages 183 to 200. Mr Winslow, it's over to you again, if you'd like to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. As the committee will be aware, on the 23rd of February 2021, the Council agreed to review its local development plan. There are a number of legal duties and risks associated with this project, one of which is called the duty to cooperate. In 2011, the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act was amended, and it established new legal duties on local authorities and some other prescribed public bodies in England to cooperate with each other to address strategic and cross-boundary matters. These are identified in the National Planning Policy Framework as being those of planning for housing, employment, retail, leisure and commercial developments, infrastructure for transport, telecoms, security, waste management, water supply, wastewater, flood risk, coastal change management and the provisions of minerals and energy, community facilities such as health, education and culture, and the conservation and enhancement of the natural built and historic environments. To this end, a duty to cooperate strategy has been prepared for Malden District, which follows current best practice and ties well into the updated corporate plan, particularly the core value of collaborate to deliver. It sets out a framework for who the Council will make every effort to cooperate with, how it will seek that cooperation, when and what mechanisms it will put in place to ensure the cooperation occurs constructively, actively and on an ongoing basis, which is a requirement of national policy. This in turn will support the Council when the LDP review is subject to the examination in public by a planning inspector and help to achieve a judgment that the LDP is both lawful and effective. As set out in the report, regulations establish who are the bodies that must comply with the duty, and they include all of our neighbouring authorities, Essex County Council, the Environment Agency, NHS bodies, the Marine Management Organisation and the South East Local Enterprise Partnership, amongst many others. The approach advocated by the strategy and supported by national planning guidance is that the Council will then enter into statements of common ground as the LDP review is prepared to document and track the cooperation on strategic issues affecting each cooperation body in the hope that all matters can be resolved by the time the LDP review is submitted to the government and examined. The Planning Policy Working Group considered the draft strategy at its meeting on the 27th of May 2021 and discussed a number of matters as documented in the reports. Should the committee approve the strategy for consultation, it will be sent to the duty to cooperate bodies for a targeted consultation for 6 weeks, which will then help inform the final strategy and the Council's approach to the duty in future.
Thank you, Mr Winslow. So the recommendations as set out in the report are as follows. Little 1, that the draft duty to cooperate strategy as set out in Appendix A for a targeted consultation with all other duty to cooperate bodies be approved. Little 2, that the following consultation and updated duty to cooperate strategy be brought back to the Strategy and Resources Committee with appropriate amendments for final approval. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Swain, thank you very much. Would any members like to comment on this report? I'm sure Councillor Channa does. Councillor Channa.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll go back to the question I was going to ask, and of course it wasn't the last report. And it's to do on page 184, Chairman, and it is 3.3.1, and it's about duty to cooperate bodies and all those bodies listed. And it seems like every council in Essex has been included, including Thurrock, Brentwood and Epping. So I question that in terms of, does it need to be entirely encapsulating all Essex authorities, or are those closer to our borders, if you like? Or is it, I know there is one council there who I think is seeking assistance in actually delivering their housing requirements. And I've got two more on this. The Mayor of London, I see, is a consultee. And obviously, I'm aware of how this council was approached previously and how the Essex authorities got together and the response they did, bearing in mind the Mayor of London who had not provided for enough housing numbers in his own authority, sought to engage district councils, or rather through the counties, and put housing that he failed to perhaps put in his plan, and for us to look at that. So I'm appreciating that might come into the equation again. And also, can I ask, bearing in mind the importance of broadband and impacts, the electric agenda now by the government, should BD UK not be a consultee on this, bearing in mind the programme for across the nation, but also, of course, Essex County Council has the Superfast Essex team that is actually implementing in Essex, part of the BD UK programme. And also, therefore, bearing in mind the electric viewpoint of the government now, and electric vehicles and phasing out diesel and petrol. I mean, it might not be seen totally as a planning issue, but it is if we're talking about, charging points and everything in properties. Should someone like EV Electric, I think there's a body called that who delivers all news from the electric vehicle world. So I just ask those questions, Chairman, if I may, on the bodies detailed within that element of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman. Mr Winslow.
Thank you. So in terms of all of the authorities, and you're quite right, Councillor Channa, that sees all of the authorities in the greater Essex area, including the two unitaries of Southend and Thurrock. The reason for that is that the strategic issues have already been identified at an Essex level that relate to specifically relate specifically to gypsy and traveller transit sites. So that is a matter which has been going on for a little while now, trying to explore where in Essex transit sites could be located, and that is a standing item on most local plans across the county. In terms of the neighbouring authorities, clearly they will be the ones that are more interested in some of the cross-boundary matters that would otherwise come up in the LDP review. In terms of the Mayor of London, this is an interesting one. So you have no choice but to cooperate with the Mayor of London in the sense of the regulations. You are, as the local planning authority, required to cooperate with the Mayor of London. Interestingly, the Mayor of London is not required to cooperate back. because the London legislation that covers the mayor's planning powers is slightly different. But as Councillor Channa refers to, there has been quite a lot of work over the last 4 or 5 years as the London Plan has been prepared, which has involved the East of England Local Government Association on behalf of Malden to try to ensure that the matters that the Mayor and the Greater London Authority have been considering as part of the London Plan preparation have had information fed from the districts all around the home counties. In terms of broadband infrastructure, and if I take the other one as well about electric or any other utilities, we don't have a duty to cooperate with those bodies. They are not necessarily a body which they're not a body which the Act requires us to cooperate with. However, they may fall into one of the statutory consultees for the local development plan, which is covered by the statement of community involvement that you've just approved for consultation. So it's not the duty to cooperate is very specific, whereas other bodies are consulted and engaged as part of plan preparation, but are covered under different regulations.
Okay, Councillor Channa.
I'm a supplementary then, Chairman. Can then the officer please advise the list we have before us, does that include all the bodies we have to consult with, or are any optimal in terms of being able to be left out? So are there any that are on the list, or whichever way you look at it, have not been included? I guess that's where I'm coming from, in light of what you just said about the duty to cooperate and then others through the statement of community involvement.
Mr Winsley?
Thank you. Yes, all the bodies are prescribed on 3.3.1.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, Councillor Durham.
Well, thank you. I just wish to wish the officer good luck with the duty of cooperate, because as Councillor Channa will recall, prior to the last LDP, our closest neighbours to the west, the City Council, objected. So I'm rather hoping that the duty to cooperate is abolished in the autumn, because our so-called friends and neighbours have singularly failed to cooperate in the past. We shall see.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Yeah, I was just following what Councillor Durham said. It was quite amusing that a very close council decided they wanted to support one of the planning applications as long as they could have all of the affordable housing for their residents. The other thing I'm a bit surprised about is the travellers, because we are obviously part of the Essex Travellers Group, which obviously you pay into. And I would have thought that a lot of the work has already been done via that, so I think we should look into that, because that should save a lot of time, because we're all working together anyway, all the people who are members of it. So I don't know if that's been taken in or not.
Is that the case, Mr Winslow?
So yes, we are part of the Essex Traveller Unit, Essex County Traveller Unit. They are focused on the enforcement of any unauthorised incursions on land across public land in Essex. We're also part of, however, as part of the Council's membership of the Essex Planning Officers Association, we are members of we're members of that body, and that body commissions evidence in respects of gypsy and traveller needs, and also as part of the investigations of transit need, which is quite a distinct need. It's not a need that's necessarily present everywhere in Essex, but certainly the intelligence that comes from the Essex Gypsy and Traveller Unit is utilised in the LDP.
Okay, thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Durham, any other members would wish to speak? Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. Where do utilities come in this term of consultation? Water supply, electricity supply, and so on. Their input is surely highly important for future planning purposes.
I think that goes back to what you said before, isn't it, Mr Winslow?
It does, yes. So just that emphasis again that these are the bodies we're required to cooperate with for the purposes of the planning legislation. In respects of utilities, telecoms, etc., that's not to diminish their importance at all, but their engagement with them is covered under different regulations and not the duty to cooperate.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
Thank you. It was an answer in response to Councillor Miss White. Actually, for my sins, I now chair the Essex County Traveller Unit, and the transit sites aren't part of our remit. In fact, unfortunately, the lack of transit sites makes it more difficult for us to move on in some cases. But as the officer has said, that the Essex Planners Association is looking and have been looking at potential traveller sites for quite a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Any other members? Okay, what I would like to do then is to move the recommendation. Can we agree that by assent? Thank you very much. So we now move on to item number 10, which is to appointment of representatives on the liaison committees found on pages 201 and 202. I'm going to go straight to the recommendations. The recommendations as set out in the report is as follows. That the committee appoints representatives to the bodies, the car parking task and finish working group, the places for people liaison committee, the River Crouch Coastal Community Team Management Team, the waste member task and finish working group. And the current representation is listed in the report. So therefore, can I have a seconder that representation stays the same, unless there are any alterations? Councillor Swain. Okay. Can we agree that by assent? Yes. Agreed. Thank you very much.
I'd have only been proposing the names anyway that they're for the
they're the same as it
Conservative, so might as well cuts it all nice and quick. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just looking at the prospect of having all these waste members. Should that, in fact, be the members' waste task and finish group?
I don't know. It depends on how you want to interpret it.
I just have a feeling that this isn't what we used to call it.
It was called the waste contract.
Was it?
Right.
Okay. I think it was that a couple of years ago. This one. It's been that since I've been a member. So, can we agree that via assent?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So item number 11 is any either items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent, and there are none. So I move to item number 12, which is the closure of the meetings. Thank you, members, for your contributions this evening. I now draw this meeting to a close at 8:17. As the meeting is now closed, members are advised not to enter into any further discussions on this forum and to please leave the meeting behind me promptly. Thank you very much.